My husband just got married. His new wife is a little strange. I am number three. Well, technically, number four. Because Juliet was a wife once, before she slit her wrist in the old shed behind the house and filled the wheelbarrow with her blood. We don't like to talk about it. Hell, I hardly knew her. Roland and I had only been engaged when she did the deed. Rumor has it he dumped the blood out of the wheelbarrow into the river, hosed it down, and tucked it back in the shed for another day. It was a casual affair, as suicides go. We bowed our heads and blessed her grave and continued on, the three of us and Roland. Madeline is the first wife. I can see why Roland picked her first. Her voice sends a shiver down my spine, in a good type of way, like warm caramel filling from her lips with every syllable. She's tall and lean, and her long auburn hair spills over her shoulder and touches her waist like a waterfall. We just found out she's pregnant. Roland is pleased. Penelope is the second. She's a bit angry and brash, but a talented seamstress and one hell of a cook. She's short and fit and always on the move, a constant boiling pot on the verge of spilling over as she busies herself with chores and cooking and cleaning and yard work and anything else she can get her hands on. Roland looks fondly upon her and dubbed her his worker bee. I have a sneaking suspicion that Penny does these things to avoid contact with her husband, but I don't tell Roland that. And there's me. I'm Annette. I'm not beautiful like Madeline or a jack of all trades like Penny. In an anticlimactic sort of fashion, Roland wed me because I can play the piano, and he likes to listen to a song or two as he falls asleep. This makes Penny laugh. She calls him a baby, listening to nursery rhymes behind his back. It makes me laugh too. But every time my fingers touch the keys, I curse my childhood self for taking an interest in the arts. Polygamy is the norm where I come from. If this was just about our day to day adventures, this wouldn't be much of a story, and certainly not a scary one, unless you count Roland's god awful greasy beard and unspoken foot fetish frightening, which is fair, in all honesty. The plot lies in wife number four, technically five. It's no secret why Roland chose to marry Zinnia. It's because she's an enigma, a puzzle to be solved, and a man like Roland can let no woman deceive him. I think he has this weird fantasy of taming a broken woman, like some kind of hero or knight, free from her demons by slipping a ring onto her finger. Zinnia arrived in our town 2 months ago, and by God, she was a sight to behold, caked in mud and murk and God knows what else, stumbling on two unsteady feet. I was home that day and had not seen her myself, but I've heard so many recounts of the affair that I might as well have. Long red hair, encrusted with mud, one left shoe, right foot bare, blue dress with pockets filled with stones. They gave her shelter in the inn, and that's when we learned. My name is Zinnia. Someone's out to get me. And that's all she said about herself, despite ample questioning. She never left the inn. She never asked to stay. She just did. And now, in a manner unbeknownst to me, she is part of the community, part of our sisterhood. Roland got her hand in marriage because Roland's old. That's pretty much it. Penny rolled her eyes when he told us, elbowed me hard in the ribs, and whispered, if I were her, I'd surrender to that mysterious someone better than being married to him. Zinnia has been living here for a couple of weeks now. She has some strange habits. from what Penny and I have noticed. She paces back and forth in her bedroom at night at a steady and even pace, only the floorboards of the old house giving her away. While she looks like a princess, she eats like a pig, scarfing down every morsel like it's her last, licking each finger clean upon completion. She has a nasty habit of tearing at her cuticles until they bleed, just watching it happen. Zinnia takes forever in the bathroom. Just weird things. Things I know Roland is mad his armchair psychologist mind can't figure out. Hi. I knock on her door and tip my head against the wood. Dinner's ready. Are you hungry? Zinnia's voice is soft. Come in. All right, I wasn't asking to, but okay. I open the door and enter the bedroom. The smell hits me almost immediately. Something like spoiled fruit. Spoiled fruit and oddly enough, copper. It's there, but not appalling, so I'm able to hide my surprise. Hi, Zinnia. How are you? Zinnia looks at me. You don't need to be afraid of me, Annette. I feel the heat rise to my cheeks. Oh no, I'm not. Don't lie. I mean, before I know it, I'm moving to sit next to her. You're a bit mysterious, that's all. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I shrug. Just a thing. Annette, Zinnia starts, smoothing out her skirt with the palms of her hands. Do you like being married? To Roland? I swallow hard. I've never been asked that question. Questions similar, but never so blunt. I go to answer, but there are rocks in my throat. I guess. You guess? I guess. What if I told you, Zinnia draws, that there's a way out of this? One that doesn't involve cutting your wrist open. You know about. Shh, that's you and me, Annie. Annie? Hold on a second, I say. How do you. Penelope's voice makes me jolt. It's getting cold, ladies. Annette, I made the butternut squash soup for you, so you better come down and enjoy it. Zinnia stands up. Oh my, I guess we better go to dinner, right? She chuckles slowly. From what I've learned here so far, an impatient Penelope is a dangerous one. Yeah, I stammer. I guess. You guess a lot, Zinnia says, me trailing behind her. I say nothing as we trek down the stairs and sit. The soup looks delicious, but I feel sick to my stomach. I always did, a little bit. After tap, I always feel sick to my stomach. I always did, a little bit after talking to Zinnia, but more so this time. And I resist the urge to turn my nose and gag. Zinnia is already digging in, shoving spoonfuls of soup in her mouth as Roland looks on curiously. Madeline stares at the wall. Penelope is bustling in the kitchen. And I'm just there, I guess. Good soup, Zinnia says between bites. Thanks, Penny says. It's Annette's favorite, so it's a little strange that she's not singing my praises right now. Strange is laced with sarcasm, maybe some anger, and maybe some concern. Roland turns toward me. Are you feeling all right, Annette? Mm-hmm, I respond. Zinnia is sucking on her spoon. As she pulls it out of her mouth, her eyes flicker to Madeline. How's the baby doing in there? Madeline raises her brow at the question. Pretty good, I suppose. There's something in between a grimace and a smile on her lips. Her eyes glance down at her belly. Roland smiles broadly, his tar-stained gums pushing against his top lip. Of course it's pretty good. My first child, after all this time, it's almost too good to be true. Zinnia replies. Kicking yet? As if on cue, Madeline lurches forward an inch and places a hand on the small of her back. Funny you mention that, she says. I just felt it now. I hadn't felt it before. Roland's face lights up. Penny rolls her eyes. Roland opens his mouth to speak, and then, interesting, Zinnia says. Madeline, when did you and Roland agree to have kids? Roland interjects as Madeline looks down at her lap. That's a bit personal, dear Zinnia. Just wondering, usually miscarriages happen within the first 3 months of a pregnancy. Are you worried about that? Madeline nearly chokes on her soup. I don't. Right, Zinnia says. Certainly not something to be worried about. Always good to keep it positive. It's just, it'd be a shame if Roland's first child, the prodigal son, just happened to not show up. Christ, Madeline hisses, and Roland is immediately by her side. Madeline, what happened? He goes to meet her gaze, but Madeline's eyes are screwed shut as she grips the table. I mean, Zinnia adds, it was bound to happen at some point. Things not going perfectly. Like, what if, in a mere moment, the life you were planning for yourself just up and poofs out of nowhere? Could you imagine? I stare across the table at Madeline, whose face is turning white. When she speaks again, it's raspy and hoarse. My, I'm having really bad cramps. I think I'm in labor. Am I in labor? Roland clasps his hands over his face. I'm calling a doctor. With that, he spins on his heels and runs out of the room. I can hear his loafers pitter patter as he runs away. I go to Madeline and place my hand on her shoulder. Just, breathe, okay? Roland's getting a doctor. I didn't mean for it to sound like a question, but it was. And Madeline's eyes flicker to me in a panic. Zinnia scrapes the side of her bowl with her spoon, unfazed. Imagine that. Poor Richard. A smile plays on her lips as she hears him on the phone in the other room, anxiously leaving the town's doctor a worried voicemail. Hey, Madeline, Zinnia says. Imagine if you just weren't pregnant. Madeline is as white as a sheet. She lets out a shaky exhale, and I release my hand from her shoulder, holding them helplessly in the air. Madeline's mouth drops open before she glances down at her lap and slowly stands, grabbing onto Penny at her other side for support. Blood. So much blood, saturating the seat cushion and dripping onto the floor, heavy and dark, in some places almost brown. Madeline steps back from the mess and gasps, hands flying to cover her mouth as Penny grasps onto her shoulders and I let out a small yelp. My eyes flicker from the blood-soaked chair to the blood-staining Madeline's skirt, the latter wavering on her feet. Penny instantly springs into action, sitting Madeline down in a chair and running to grab her a glass of water. Muttering, swears under her breath. I sharply inhale as I remember the other woman at the table, my gaze landing on Zinnia, who is patting her mouth with a napkin. What? I start, my voice warbling. What did you do? Zinnia half smiles. Oh, please, like she wanted that baby to begin with. Her body is hers again. Once she gets over the shock, she'll be thanking me. I I don't know what to say. I hear Roland in the background, gasping, his thin hand slapping against his bony chest as he reaches for his heart. Zinnia stands up, and I brace myself, trying to move in somewhat of a protective stance in front of Madeline. Zinnia lets out a throaty chuckle as she moves to the pot of soup and scoops herself seconds, like this was just a normal family dinner. What happened? Roland screamed, hands flying away from his chest and on top of his balding head. Zinnia sits down with her bowl. Honey, imagine if you just couldn't take it. Your baby gone, your oh so stunning dining room setup destroyed. Imagine if it was just too much for you. Imagine if your heart was just pounding out of your chest. Roland looks down at his stomach as his hands find his heart and he begins to choke on his breath. He opens his mouth to speak, but the only thing that comes out is a sputtered gasp, spit flying from his lips. His lips begin to wobble. In a moment, his knees give out. He's on the floor, wheezing. Zinnia grins, a bit too wide. Imagine your heart is going to explode. You're so distraught. Imagine you're just crying, sobbing even. Tears are running down Roland's face as he stares, his breath staggering with every pathetic inhale. He finally crumples to the ground, shaking. Zinnia stands up, moves to walk toward him, and I'm grabbing her arm and pulling her back. I don't know why I'm crying. I don't like the man. Lord knows Penny doesn't. And I have a sneaking suspicion Madeline isn't the biggest fan either. Zinnia turns back to me. What? What do you want? Don't, don't kill him. Please, Zinnia. Zinnia shakes my hand from her arm, and only then do I notice that I'm shaking. She looks back towards Roland. Imagine you get up and quit being a baby. You're fine, she barks. I watch as Roland slowly stands, grabbing onto the table for support. Madeline seems to be less shell shocked. She's starting to look down at her lap. In a strange turn of events, Penny is laughing. Roland says nothing. I feel sick. And Zinnia says this. Did you make dessert, Penelope? Yeah, Penelope says, voice breathy from laughter. Banana bread. All right, let's eat. Zinnia finds her seat and sits back down. You too, Roland. The five of us sit around the table as Penny places the banana bread down. I love the married life. We're going to be a good team, the five of us. As quiet as a mouse, Madeline replies, Yeah, I think so too.